Hello and welcome to today's content where we're talking about Viktor because she had been released a week ago for her EX and I kind of happened to miss it, and yeah, here is the video now. Going to be talking about her and doing a unit analysis. So yeah, without further ado, let's begin. So for her abilities for Viktora, she is going to be the Dragoon main job. As a base unit, she's going to have Jump, Dragon's Kin, Horizontal Jump, Vertical Jump, and Dragon Dive. From here, her limit break is going to be Enchanting Trap, which has a very high chance of inflicting Charm and is, as you can see from the hitbox, it's going to be kind of an X shape, and yeah, it's going to be very effective if it lands the charm, so just keep that in mind. That is one of her best abilities in the game. For EX upgrade, her horizontal jump is now going to turn to Shattering Dive. It not only gains a range height +1, which is very nice, it also decreases defense by 25, so very like good useful ability for her that she kind of needed because she does not have defense penetration in that situation. From her EX ability, she is going to get Frost Reaver, which is going to be kind of like Leap Strike, which is like Glaciella, where they jump to a location and deals damage, and for Frost Reaver, it has a chance to inflict Frostbite. For sub-jobs, Dragon's Roar, which is, I mean, it's alright. It's not really ever going to be used in auto battle. However, in terms of like manual play, especially like even tower, if you do manual play in general and you can lower like bravery like very like quickly, you can actually kind of cheese certain things, such as like turning units into chickens and stuff like that. You could do some fun stuff with it. Outside of that fun stuff, however, it does not actually have good usage because it's almost never used by the auto AI. From here, Dragon Standards can be very useful for extremely high mobility if you really want Viktora to kind of like travel around really fast. But her Soldier sub-job is going to be really interesting because she does not have Drain Force, which is unfortunate. However, she does have Hazard Break, which is an extremely strong hitting ability that is also AoE that she can select at a range. She does not have to be like super close. So that is pretty neat to have for a DPS unit. From here, from her Thief sub-job specifically, she does have a Shadow Cast if you want to try to get high evasion for a few turns, and Steal Time if you wanted to use for like raids or like specifically manual play. That's very nice to have, as well as Steal Vision, which kind of can be used at the same time as Shadow Cast. So it's just very nice to have in terms of like manual play / PvP usage without too much reliance on auto battle. For resistances and passives for Viktor, for damage type, she has 0% to slash, 10% to pierce, -5% to strike, 20% to missile, and -20% to magic. So as you can see here, she really struggles overall in resistances in terms of generic or general like attack types. However, she's very strong against missile in general, and she's decent into pierce. So yeah, those are matchups that she will be decently into. However, you do have to keep in mind, because she starts off at a 0% slash and -20% magic attack types, there are a significant amount of units that will be taking advantage of those weaknesses. She has 0% AoE, 0% single target resistances. At level 120, master ability included, she has 0 defense and 0 spirit. For resistances to statuses, she has 50% to stop and immobilize, and -5 to toad, which is kind of weird, but yeah, that's how it is. She is a little bit more of an older unit. For master abilities, she has increasing her own pierce attack by 10, and then she has decreased activation time for like either casts and jumps in general, so she can get her jumps abilities out a little bit quicker if they do have a cast time. She is a 3-move 4-jump unit, 70 cost, so she is very mobile in terms of terrain if they have like differing height. She does have options for more move as well, so she can be extremely mobile. For her passives, what I would highly recommend was probably going to be Thief Lore and Self-Sacrifice, mostly because without Self-Sacrifice, she hits like a wet noodle, and Thief Lore is mostly to increase her agility because she is a bit on the slower side without Thief Lore being used. For niche and flexes, jump +1, you don't really need it. We've never really seen a 5-jump map yet that is like needed for that, so it's probably never going to be really used. The HP is actually not bad because she has decent HP. If you want a little bit more survivability, that could be an option. And the acquired AP, as much as I can say that Viktor really needs AP generation, her AP generation abilities are so bad that even with the acquired AP up, it will not be helping her at all, so I can't really recommend that either. For her reaction abilities, Dragon's Blade gets upgraded as an EX ability to Dragon's Fang. As you can see, it's a little bit easier to like get off in terms of, instead of just being straight up and down and left and right from her, they can also be a little bit diagonal out now from that upgrade. Additionally, it also decreases the AP on the enemy by 15 if it's maxed, and she increases her own AP by 15 if it does hit. So yeah, that is something to consider if she does get that off. It is very strong if it works. For counter slash, it's alright, and quick action would be what I would recommend outside of Dragon's Fang. You would either use Dragon's Fang or quick action in my opinion, just because of a little bit more extra benefits on the reaction abilities. And here is Viktora's rating out of 5. In the end, I did decide to give her a 3 out of 5. That does mean she does not have an example setup slide, unfortunately, but yeah, I do believe she is strong in her niche. However, because she is niche and much difficult to use in terms of autoplay and in general the meta, that's why in the end she gets a 3 out of 5. I will say she does have very good strengths and assets. However, as I said, it really leans more towards cheese strats as well as manual play. So that's why she's not going to be as useful for you in the future, as well as there's going to be other Ice Dragoon units in the game that will definitely outclass Viktora, and I will be getting to that later. First off, let's go through the pros. She has very high missile resistance that can easily traverse terrain due to her mobility, so she's very good against those type of matchups in terms of missile as well as just bad terrain in general, because she can just jump over a lot of the terrain if she needs to. She has decent HP, decent attack, average agility, and she can use her passive to get good agility, so that she's going to be actually quite fast if you use Thief Floor. Without it though, she will be on the much slower side. Shattering Dive not only hits hard, but also lowers defense, which is very crucial because she does not have any defense penetration abilities or passives, so this is going to be very nice to have for her. She's able to use both pierce and slash damage types with high modifiers, such as Hazard Break, that hits very, very hard. She's insanely good for class match and live PvP if you used properly because of her kit and what she can provide for her team. She's really good in class match and live PvP. Even before EX units were out, she was insanely annoying back then, back in the day before EX was out. She was so good back then, and I don't think too much of it changed because I will say her Limit Break is one of the best in the game. The Ice Lance is an extremely powerful offensive weapon for Viktora. If you really wanted to boost her damage really high, the Ice Lance would have been one of your best bets because of the ice elemental damage as well as the pierce damage up on it. She has very high base missile resistance, allows her in general missile matchups to be very favorable for her. This means that if Jaden and Laura Croft do not have their missile resistance penetration abilities active for the buffs, they will not actually be doing too much damage to Viktora, so Viktora can take advantage of that very, very well. Same thing as Cloud. If he uses Sharpshoot or Barrage on her and she has her missile resistance pumped up, it's not going to do much damage to her because she has a very high base amount. It's very easy for her to invest little into it and still be resistant to missile. As I said before, her Limit Break is literally one of the best in the game if it lands. It has an extremely high base chance of inflicting Charm as a status effect. Even units that have 50% Charm resistance can still be charmed, even if it's a lower chance. That's how effective and good Viktora's Limit Break is. Against units that don't have Charm resistance, however, she's almost a guarantee that it's going to charm, so just keep that in mind. Dragon's Fang as a reaction ability is extremely good in terms of draining enemy resources and boosting her own survivability if it activates and she's able to survive after taking the hit. So keep that in mind. It does have conditions for it to be used. She's able to move and inflict Frostbite very well with her EX ability. Inflict Frostbite with Frost Reaver, because it's kind of like Leap Strike on Glaciella, where she just jumps to a location and does AoE damage out there, and it has a chance to inflict Frostbite. So it's very nice to see that type of mobility, because she can kind of flank or blitz through an enemy very quickly to the back line instead of having to fight for the front and possibly take a lot of chip damage. So keep that. It's good mobility usage as long as she doesn't get too far ahead of her team. And lastly, for the pros, that her master ability allows for jumps to cast a little bit quicker, which is nice because most of her abilities does have a cast time because of jumps. But outside of that, her master ability will help in that situation. Also, I didn't list here specifically, but her Thief subjob does very well, as I said, in class matching live PvP, so it is something to consider. Now let's talk about the cons. First off, she has no base spirit and defense. She has no good survivability options either. She does not have any barriers. She doesn't have access to a barrier kind of like Jaden does, or Black Robe Helena's TMR as well. She doesn't have those options for barriers that she can just use as a priority. She does not have those. Additionally, if you want to be used as a DPS properly, you have to have bells. And I say this because there are no exceptions, because her abilities to even generate AP generation in general, even with her passive, if she does AP generation up, are so bad that she really just does not gain much AP from using those TP abilities. She really needs bells if you want her to be a DPS. Outside of that, if you do not want her to be a DPS and or you're doing class match or live PvP, you don't really necessarily need bells, but if you do want her for DPS as well as auto, she kind of has to have bells. Second off, she has no multi-hits, she has no barrier breaks, and it makes it very hard for Viktor to get through any type of mitigation. Even defense, Shattering Dive only lowers it by 25, so just against higher defense enemies, like that 25 defense is not going to cut it like enough. She's very extremely weak to magic attack types and vulnerable to slash. She has to fight up an uphill battle to raise her core resistances with a lot of resources, so keep that in mind. Additionally, she kind of has to use self-sacrifice for damage benefits. None of her other passives give her more damage, so she really has to use self-sacrifice for the attack modifier. Keep that in mind though, because of her resistances overall outside of missile are really kind of crabby. If you use self-sacrifice, they're going to get even worse, so her survivability really tanks significantly. She has no 100% hit abilities, and she has like nothing to help her accuracy either. She also has mediocre luck stats, so she is going to be absolutely useless in my opinion against evasion units. She has no imperils, but does have Shattering Dive at least. So it'll be very hard for her though to take down any tanks that have either defense, a lot of it, or pierce resistance. Kind of like Joom in a way. Even Joom, who is a wind type, still has very high pierce resistance, which is something Viktor cannot actually pierce through like properly, so just keep that in mind. She's also still going to be vulnerable to disable and paralysis. She does have stop resistance, which is very nice however. Almost all attacking moves require a cast time in terms of her jumps from the Dragoons, outside of her Limit Break and Frost Reaver. That means it does have a chance to still miss if it does not lock on, just because the enemy might have like a faster turn order. So yeah, just keep that in mind. She might not even get her abilities out properly. Dragon's Fang is still a 20% base activation chance, and it's reliant on Viktor not only surviving a hit, but the enemy target also has to be in range, and it has to activate with a 20% base chance. There are so many conditions to be met for it to be consistent enough that Viktor can make proper use out of this. This is going to be more of like a surprise thing, like, oh, it happened once in a while, like it actually worked, nice. It's going to happen less than Reflex, because Reflex, it just works like in all attack situations. Well, 99% of them. Like obviously certain things get bypass Reflex, kind of like Drain Force, but yeah, you know what I mean. Reflex can be used in so many more situations compared to Dragon's Fang, which requires the enemy unit to be within 2 spaces. She has to survive the hit, and then she also has to hit, because if it also hits like against an evasion unit and they just dodge the Dragon's Fang, well, you get nothing out of it then. So yeah, there is too many conditions for it to be met. Obviously, if it does work, it's going to be very effective, but there are so many situations where it does not like properly be consistent enough. She lacks a lot of offensive power compared to a lot of future / already released units, and she has to resort to kind of cheese with her Limit Break for the charm, or kind of like pick up after her team pretty much. She's not going to be doing the heavy lifting or hyper carrying herself, which is another reason why her rating is not as high. Viktor's got she's a bit of an outdated unit. She has been here for a while, and she, in my opinion, did not get the proper buffs she needed. Although Shattering Dive really helps cover the non-existent defense penetration, she can still be resisted depending on the unit. Like even defense down, if you're going against a Charlotte who has like her Saint's Wall Up or Grand Shield Armor or something, I forgot what it's called, and it gives her basically the defense debuff resistance, Shattering Dive doesn't even lower the defense. So then Viktor really just has nothing to do against that situation. Like they did not give her a proper EX in my ability if they really wanted her to be super relevant in our meta, just in general, especially against other units in general. It had to be a Frederica tier level of buffs in terms of like pierce resistance penetration, or like a huge defense penetration, or defense down. 25, while it is a good amount, it's not 30 or 35, which she could definitely have benefited off of. And lastly, although Aranea is coming out in Final Fantasy 15, she is better than Viktor in almost 9 out of 10 times situations that you can list off as a DPS. If you're listing off DPS situations specifically, Aranea wins out in almost all of them in my opinion. Obviously, Viktor is still useful, however, because of her charm Limit Break, especially in class match and live PvP, as I keep reiterating. She is very useful in that niche. However, she really struggles to keep up with current meta. Like even with her charm Limit Break, if it's gonna hit on a Helena not only still has charm resistance, so it's gonna be a much lower chance of it landing. Viktora will die instantly to Helena because of that extremely low magic attack resistance already and 0 base of spirit. So it's really hard for Viktora to survive hits in terms of general meta matchups. For the TMR chase rating, it's going to be the Greed Armor. It's an armor type, 502 in HP, 8 defense, and 12 accuracy. Overall, it's not that great in my opinion. I mean, the stats aren't like horrible, but obviously lately, outside of agility that we're looking for on TMRs, armor like stats in general has to have a really good active. And in this situation, the active is called Eye of the Dragon, where it's going to increase pierce attack by 80, which is an extremely high amount, and accuracy by 30. These are certain situations that have to be considered. Not only is it only for one turn, it's for herself only and only generates 12 AP. She also has to be in range of the enemy within that one turn, as well as has to hit. If she's going against an evasion unit, even with the accuracy 30, it is not a guaranteed hit regardless. So yeah, it is not even guaranteed for that situation. Additionally, if she does decide to use a jump after activating this buff, and then the enemy just moves away from the jump because of the cast time did not resolve properly, you just essentially just wasted a TMR slot. So as you can see, overall there are better options, like far better. It is not really worth chasing or even considering this TMR too much. Like, I would not be like, oh, but maybe Meteo is wrong, you know, or like I could definitely make use of this. You can go for it. I would say go for it. Like, seriously, just if it works for you, go for it. But I really can't see it being too much useful compared to other TMRs that we have out available already. And because Viktora's rating is below a 3.5, I do not have a last slide for her, as I said before. So yeah, this will be the end of the video, and yeah, this is my rating on Viktora. In the end, I do think she's a 3 out of 5. She's still very niche, but very strong in her niche. But outside of that, she's kind of, not gonna say worthless of a unit, but not strong enough to keep up right now. And yeah, until next video, peace out.